because we're always on point for that, and then we kind of waver.
Nobody has any confidence. Nobody believes.
Because it's easy to time before, then you hear everyone else's voice at the same time.
Yeah, and then you're just like, wait a minute.
Wait, what's happened here?
Is it
It's especially bad for me because I'm always out of sync with you guys in my ears.
It's true.
Oh, no.
It's episode 335 of The Platformers, a show about games and nerd culture. And I'm your host, Brian Barnett.
I am Hortoran clan friend, Kris Conley.
I'm drinking. I'm Will Berger. Hi.
I am Lucas White. I started my morning watching a Saga 2 speedrun on All Games Done Quicks, and I've just been riding that high all day, baby.
Nice.
Damn.
Isn't
Saga 2
Baldur's
is
Gate
in
3,
the Game Boy one, or?
Yeah.
Nice.
They did some wild shit to that game.
I can imagine. How long does that run?
I want to say it was like 40-something minutes.
We have to look that up. I'm so curious now.
The key is to have, I think, 3 robots in your team. Load them up with bows so they can...
I'm sorry, I needed 3 robots?
Yeah, robots.
Yeah.
In Romancing Saga too? The
Yeah,
game where
no,
you
Saga 2.
Normal Saga 2. Yeah.
Even older.
Okay,
so
sorry.
giving them all the bows.
I got very confused for a second. I was like, I thought that game took place in like medieval fantasy.
There's still an automaton in that game, but yeah.
I'm gonna
They'd
play
be
that
mixing
game
genres.
just for you.
I appreciate that.
Worth it. We've been talking it up for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I got to preview it, but I figure like maybe this is the year of the deep dive. Maybe Romancing Saga 2 is a deep dive video game.
Ooh, that is quite an endeavor to get the most out of it. But anyway, so you give the robots a bunch of bows, so they get agility, so you can run away from every battle. Then you reload fights on a specific NPC until you get one with exactly 11 enemies, plus your 4 plus your NPC, so it's a 16-person fight. In your non-robot slot, you have a skeleton that has poison. You whittle down this fight to the very last enemy, ensure that thing dies by poison, which is like the worst iteration of poison in video game history. And if you do it right, it glitches the game so bad by overloading hex values or something that it fills the robots up with the best equipment in the game, multiple copies of it. So their stats just skyrocket off the charts. And then you can just breeze through the rest of the game.
Wild.
Yeah. I was watching it and my jaw just fell open like, oh my god. There's like other glitches too later to like go through walls and stuff, but it's just the normal game until that point, yeah.
This seems
none of that's comparable to, actually just breaking your stats wide open because hexadecimal overflow.
This seems like a perfect time to introduce my wife's subversive cross stitch that she made for me.
Uh-oh. Yeah, pretty much. Fucking yikes.
Fucking yikes.
Yeah.
It's funny, the glitch in the first saga is just like feeding peds to your human characters and like keeping track of the math so you go over the max but not too far over. And then this one is just like, no, you just break everything.
I love it.
You just turn your characters into Missing No and go for it.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, Missing No was great.
That's like possibly the most legendary glitch of all time, frankly.
It's really good.
It's an all-timer. Every now and then I forget that there are people who didn't use it. They're like, I beat the game normally. I'm like, you're a psychopath.
Yeah, why? Why would you do that?
I mean, I definitely beat the game normally, but like I did not level my Pokemon to 100.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. God, no.
Legitimately, I don't know. No, sir.
No, man. Giving them the rare candies gives them the Hulk Hogan pythons. They're just water. They're stronger without them.
I understand that, but I was 8 and I did not know what EVs were.
Oh yeah, I did the same thing.
Yep, it's true.
I mean, and how would you know? Because the game never tells you, right?
The game never tells you.
It never even like implies like, oh no, your Pokemon will get stronger. Like if you beat the shit out of 100 Geodudes, like that will do things for you. Like, oh.
Yeah.
No, it implies it. It's those raised with love and care will be stronger than those out in the wild, you see?
Beating the shit out of 100 Geodudes is not raising with love and care.
You
No.
tell that to Game Freak, because they will disagree.
They are freaks. It's true.
It's true. They are indeed freaks.
Possibly
Well,
frauds. Not sure yet.
Degenerates, all of them.
Yeah. Speaking of degenerates, we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week.
Speaking of degenerates, we're all here.
It's true. We
Hi,
are all
how's it going?
here. We are all here. It's good. It's
The
been
gang
a
is all
while.
here for the first. This is the first cast of the year, right?
First
Yes.
cast of the year.
First
Yeah,
cast
oh
of the
yeah.
year.
Happy New Year, you freaks.
Happy New Year, you.
Yeah. Yeah, filthy animals.
Yeah, well,
Happy New
yeah,
Year
I've
from New
watched
York.
both of the Home Alone movies over the break, so
Ah, you mean
Certainly.
the films that star Donald Trump? Yes.
yeah. Which is
WWE Hall of
just
Famer.
The second one does.
one of the many reasons why the first one is supreme. But
Such like a funny cultural artifact, right? Like in
Very
hindsight,
strange.
yeah,
Mhm.
bizarre. Not funny. Good. Funny. Like, how do we let this happen, bro?
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the crazy thing about Home Alone is it imagines a world in which a child is left alone in New York City, and while his family goes to like Florida, I think, or France, and it also posits an even more unlikely scenario. A world in which somebody asks Donald Trump for help and he actually helps them.
Damn.
Also,
Damn.
a family in which there's like 11 kids in the house, and
Yeah.
yet they have that house.
Yeah.
Listen, that was just the '90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun fact. All four of us have not been on a podcast together since 3/28 in the middle of November.
Jesus.
It's been a minute.
Busy holiday.
Food
I feel
poisoning
like
will do
that
that to
has
you.
largely. I feel like I've been like a pretty good, shower upper for the last couple months, which is not always the case. So
Yeah.
it's not me. It's the rest of you. You guys are slacking.
I mean,
Mhm.
I've been on all of them, so I don't know what you're talking about.
There was a couple last year they weren't on, but
That's true.
that's about it.
That's true.
Yeah,
For the
we
first
held down
time in
before.
however many.
That's true. So, let's get started. Shall we start with games or shall we start with other stuff?
I think it's tradition to start with Book Corner when it's available, and you
That
have
is-
Book Corner, yeah?
I think so. Yes. So, Audrey's Book Corner starting it off strong in 2025. Been reading more of, I think I mentioned this earlier, but The Last Murder at the End of the World.
Sounds
The name
familiar.
sounds familiar, yeah.
Which is the newest Stuart Turton novel. I was only like a couple of chapters in the last time that I talked about it. I'm like a fourth of the way through the book now, and it's really good. It's very interesting. There are some really cool hooks in this book, and I cannot wait to see where it goes. It's already going to some very interesting directions that I don't think I've ever read a book do this before. But yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good.
Nice. Keep us posted.
Will do. And then and also just while we're touching on like extra game cultural stuff, I watched A Haunting in Venice. Have any of you seen that?
I actually, that's my
Haven't
favorite
heard
of
of it.
the Kenneth Branagh Poirot's.
It's pretty good.
I have not seen it.
Yeah, I really like that one.
Yeah, it was really, really good. It actually scared Audrey. Like she was like, "Don't leave me right now." I was like, "What? It's just you're fine." But I had not read that story before, and so I didn't know what was happening, but I was like, I think I know what's gonna happen here, and I called some of the twists early, which is pretty fun. I always love when I get to do that. But yeah, I highly recommend it. A Haunting in Venice, the new Hercule Poirot, Kenneth Branagh mystery film. Mystery horror this time around. They play it a bit more into the creepy vibes. It's quite good. Did you have
Nice.
any thoughts on it, Will? Other than it's good?
I think it's interesting because like I like the Branagh films, but my wife is like a Poirot obsessive.
Yeah.
So she has very strong opinions on like Christie's work and who the best adaptations are and all that stuff. And I think one of the things that makes Haunting in Venice interesting is like it really leans into being a really compelling mystery that also makes sense, and yet working as a horror story, right?
Yeah.
Like where there are certain things about it where you're like, I can't explain that,
Yeah.
or at least I have enough doubt in my mind that you can read it that way if you want,
Yeah.
which I think is really cool.
Yeah. It leaves enough open to understand why the characters are shaken in the circumstances, and also to kind of give you enough mental ammunition to be like, well, maybe it's this, or
Mhm.
maybe it's that, which I like. I always like when there's like room for interpretation in film.
Yeah.
But yeah, we stand David Suchet in this house, and
Yeah, that's the gold standard for
yeah,
Kira.
we are. And I never noticed this until now, so I'm curious if Kira has any thoughts about this. So I like them. My least favorite is Death on the Nile of the films.
Yeah, I think that's probably
But I still
for
think it's good. Like, I still think it's pretty good.
yeah, I don't
Um,
think there's a bad one.
yeah, yeah. I just think that like I mean, Orient Express. Like, I mean, come on, that's like iconic.
Mhm.
And this was one that I actually, yeah. So I think the Murder on the Orient Express was the only one whose story I knew before I watched it. Because I'd read Murder on the Orient Express, but I hadn't read Death on the Nile or Haunting in Venice. So those were fun for like new stories. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I do think A Haunting in Venice is the stronger of the two, but it also cuts like a very different kind of silhouette, you know,
Yeah,
than
the film is
than
is
the
is
others.
different in an interesting way.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, I will say one thing that was very interesting that I didn't even think about until we were watching more, because Audrey and I are watching through the entire David Suchet run of Hercule Poirot right now, actually. Um, and one thing that I was thinking about as we were watching, God, what was it? I think it was like his first case, which is like season 2, episode 1, or something like that. But I was like, wait a second, why? It makes sense why, like, if you've seen like the Murder of Roger Ackroyd, it makes sense why Hastings isn't in that one, because Poirot is retired and like
Mhm.
this just kind of happened around him. But I was like, why isn't Hastings in any of the movies? Like,
Yeah, it could be, the thing with like film, I think, especially from books, is like you have to condense characters.
yeah. And I guess
Which
you
is
don't
just
need
the
him, but
yeah, which is just the reality, right? Because like in a book, you're making a distinction between like, all right, this is the word, I associate this word with the character, and you can build like a lot of characters that way. Whereas in film, it's like, okay, what's his name again, right? Because most of the time you don't see their name, whereas in a book you get a
yeah.
lot of repetition of like this character is said or this character did, and it helps it make it easier to focus on lots of characters. Where in film you don't have that because
Yeah.
it's visual.
That's
So
fair.
sorry, I know too much about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's all good. I mean, and there are lots of characters in these movies anyway, so adding
Anyway,
another
right.
one would be like, ugh.
When you don't need it, right? And the
Yeah.
other thing is like the more characters you add, the more runtime you're inevitably going to have.
Yeah.
Because you have to set them up and establish them, and then have them play a meaningful role in the plot.
Yeah.
And if you can cut a guy, like, okay,
More scenes to shoot, more, checks to cut,
Yeah.
exactly,
so on and
right?
so forth.
Yeah. It's just interesting because he's such an integral part of the show, particularly in certain, like one episode where he and the chief inspector have a bet that Hercule can't solve the murder without leaving his apartment. And so he
Yeah,
just has Hastings go and do all the research, and then he just kind of sits there in the flat building houses of cards, and then just solves it without leaving, which is like crazy. Anyways, all that to say, if you like mysteries, you like detective stuff, you gotta love Poirot. Like, people talk a lot of sugar about Holmes, but the real ones know that's all about Poirot.
And Detective Pikachu.
Yes.
Naturally.
I suppose we stan a Rat King. But
Shout outs to my boy Harry Dubois.
all right, so yeah, that's it for Audrey's Book Corner, and we got to find out. We got to figure out a name for the movie corner. Whatever, but yeah.
Yo, are we doing movie corner?
Yeah, I mean, I
can.
guess.
Okay, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but like,
Let's get out.
Nosferatu.
Oh, the remake?
Yeah, that is some good fucking food.
I have heard very good things from all over the place, and I'm looking forward to going to see it myself.
I actually
Yeah,
haven't heard
it's-
anything about it, so I'm excited.
It's excellent. It's extreme. I mean, it's Robert Eggers, right? Like by now, I think you kind of know if you vibe with his kind of horror. You know, I do. I'm very much like this dude can do whatever he wants, and I will be there. You know, opening weekend. So my wife and I saw it the day after Christmas because it opened on Christmas, which is an interesting choice for a horror film, and it's the thing with Nosferatu, right? Is it's Dracula, but it's also not Dracula because they didn't have the rights to make Dracula. So choosing to remake Nosferatu and not do Dracula is interesting, right? Because it's functionally in a lot of ways the same story. And Nosferatu is very much Dracula. So I think the changes that they've made are really interesting. I think it gives the women in the story a lot more agency and impact over the plot. I think that it's stunningly shot. It's one of the most beautiful films you're going to see, you know, that came out last year. Just the composition and the way that Eggers uses the camera is really pretty. The effects are excellent. It is one of those movies that like looks expensive and probably was expensive to shoot, but like a lot of films that are expensive look like shit now. And Nosferatu doesn't. It looks amazing. So it's got that going for it. It's extremely well acted. It's very smartly written. It's not too long, which I also appreciate. Like,
Runtime bloat is a real thing these days.
yeah, it's very much like Dracula, but what if, right? In a way that I really appreciate because Dracula is such an iconic story. You know, we've had a million different versions of Dracula. And I think it is, I would say, like, the original is very hard to go back to, like the original Nosferatu, because it's so old. And
Yeah.
it's
like
and it was supposed to be
1922
destroyed
or something.
Yeah, early
I think
20s.
it's almost 100 years old, if not more than 100. I don't remember the exact release date.
I watched it in high school because we studied Dracula in high school, which was awesome. But we watched a whole bunch of adaptations, including there's a film that's like it's almost like it goes into the filming of Nosferatu as its own kind of story. It's got John Malkovich in it, I think.
Yeah.
I can't remember it. Shadow of the Vampire or something like that. Something like that. That was pretty cool as well.
That's
I like
awesome.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's an interesting story for sure.
Anyway, yeah, and like, but it's hard to go back to, right? And so, like, for my money, the best adaptation of Dracula is the one that Coppola did.
I was gonna say, is Dracula 2000?
No, is Bram Stoker's Dracula. And
that's
I think
the
that,
Gary Oldman one, or
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
that one's Gary Oldman,
yeah.
Anthony Hopkins, Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder, and Carrie Ellis, weirdly enough.
yeah,
a very minor role. And I don't think that this film matches that cast because, like, no disrespect to William Dafoe, he's not Anthony Hopkins.
Who is?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, your Van Helsing equivalent is not as cool as Anthony Hopkins.
But like honestly, like Bram Stoker's Dracula stands on the shoulders of Oldman and Hopkins, and that's basically those are like the
pretty
pillars.
bad.
Yeah, it's almost like they diminish John Harker in that movie because Reeves doesn't do a great job of it.
I think, you know, the more I watch that film, the more I actually appreciate his performance because, like, it's very stilted, but like John Harker as a character is very stilted.
I mean,
right?
that's fair.
He's he's
Mostly-
a legal guy out of his fucking depth.
Like
It's
he is
mostly the
completely out
accent
of
he
his
gets
depth. Like,
grief for.
would you say, Lucas? I'm sorry.
It's mostly the accent that he gets dunked on for at this point. I
Yeah,
think.
but his actual like, if you can get around the accent, and I don't think the accent is great. I think his actual performance as the character, right, like the way he moves in the scenes and the way he reacts, like, is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch it again. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Because I watched it at the same time as I watched Nosferatu and that because so it's been a while.
Yeah, that is an annual like Halloween film for me. Anyway, so I don't know if I love Eggers Nosferatu as much as I love Coppola, because Coppola is one of my favorite directors. As much as I love his version of Dracula, but I think they're really interesting companion pieces, and I love it as much, right? Like, I don't think I think it's a better film, but I love them as companion pieces of like two different variations of the same story. Whereas Coppola was like, what if we made Dracula a love story, because the book is not that.
Yeah,
And
it's like the most romanticized of Dracula in quite a while.
Yeah, like what if we humanize the monster, right? Like, which I think is still a pretty radical thing to do for Dracula, especially.
Yeah.
And it's been done since. Castlevania famously.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I still think Castlevania the animated series is still the best humanization I've seen of Dracula.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
it's
think
pretty good.
there's a lot of like really good stuff, obviously, like with Dracula, because the character is so iconic. But I think for me, again, like the best thing is like that it stands with those stories and still feels relevant, and like it has new and interesting things to say, because Dracula's almost 130 years old as a story.
Mm-hmm.
1897.
Not that old for a vampire.
True.
And like every vampire story since is basically a response to Dracula.
Yeah.
And I think that Eggers like carves out a new space for himself, like in that part of the story, by choosing to do the things that he does, while still being very much like, yeah, man, this is the vampire story, right? But like by giving different characters agency and changing pieces of the plot and changing the way certain characters react to certain things, I think that he's done like a very really cool and unique thing. And it's, again, like just beautifully, like from a technical level, from the actors and the script, and just beautifully made. So if you haven't seen Nosferatu and you have interest in, Dracula or vampire stories or just Eggers' filmography, I highly, highly recommend it. I think it's one of the best films from last year.
It's so cool that as old and iconic a story as Dracula is, like, we have so many different things that have to do with those ideas or that property and handle it in so many different ways. Like, we have
That's the beauty of the public domain, baby.
Yeah, we have Count Orlok, we have Dracula, we have, versions of him that are like Vlad the Impaler. We have like parody versions where we get Nicolas Cage as Dracula. We have What We Do in the Shadows, both the film and the show, who both have different takes on like Vlad the Impaler as Dracula.
Yeah.
Count
I even
Dracula.
enjoyed, like, I think you got more mixed reception, but I even enjoyed like either last year or the year before, like Last Voyage to the Demeter. I think was a really interesting take on like that particular chapter of the book, where they're on the ship. And so I think, it's like a statement to Brian's point, like the idea of like, what if we play with this story? And the same way that I think people are my wife is reading a book right now about Lucy, who gets turned into a vampire famously in the book and in basically every adaptation of the story. And it's like, what if it was a sapphic romance and she lived? Right? And then she's like, this is amazing. And I'm like, cool, now I want to read it, right? So I think like the beauty of Dracula, aside from the fact that Bram Stoker was a very good writer who did not write women super well, that's like the major flaw with the book, was that like he created a story that has so many different variations that people have latched onto. And like, how many stories that are that old do we keep telling over and over and over and over and over?
Yeah.
Not a lot. So
how many classical stories can be interpreted from like the excess of the aristocracy to like war and a fight against God and like humanity's like inner nature manifesting, and also like sexual like liberty and also, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much. Like, how many stories are that flexible?
Not many, right?
Like,
and I think you see it in Egger's work, and in every version of Dracula. No, that's what makes it cool. But yeah, Brian, and Kris, if anybody hasn't seen it, like, go see it. Please go make sure this film makes money. Like,
is it still in the theaters now?
Yes, I mean it only came out like a week and a half ago, I think.
Okay,
it came out on Christmas, so it's like this is its second week basically.
I straight up had not seen like anything on it, so I didn't even know Willem Dafoe was cast. But I cannot wait to see him. Like,
yeah, he's Van Helsing. He's the Van Helsing equivalent. I think it's like Von Franz is his name in this, and this is not to diminish Dafoe, right? Like, Dafoe is a great actor, and he gives a very good performance. The issue is just like he's not Anthony Hopkins.
Okay. Oh shit! I thought he was the Count, and I was like,
no,
oh damn, dude.
No,
Willem Dafoe would be fucking incredible.
I think it's Bill Skarsgård is Orlok.
Oh shit! The guy who played Pennywise.
Yeah, and he's great. He does a great job. Nice. Very memorable performance. Like, there are no bad performances in this movie.
Nice.
Everybody is really good. It's just that, like, I think particularly for Dafoe, like, he's like Hopkins's performance is really iconic because it's like not necessarily over the top, but like he has so many cool lines of dialogue and different things that he gets to do. Yeah. And Dafoe's role is a little bit smaller because of the changes to the story. Still a major role, but it is not like, Hopkins comes in and it's like, oh, okay, like this is the guy, right?
I mean, but does he compare to Hugh Jackman?
Anthony Hopkins can make anything iconic. Like in the Thor movie, your birthright is to die. Like, it's just like, God damn, bro, did you have to put that much sauce on it? Holy shit.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do it, you might as well go hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, like I said, I didn't want to spend a ton of time on Nosferatu because I think it's really like just kind of like a very obvious thing to say. But if you haven't seen it and you like horror and you're interested in like vampire stories, you really should go see it. It's pretty great.
Cool.
Reminds me, I got to go play the Legacy of Kain remasters very soon.
I was gonna say, let's segue into some games that have vampires in them. I have one. Does anybody else have one?
Do you? With vampires in them?
Not vampires.
I got Morrowind that has vampires in.
I mean, I guess World of Warcraft has vampires in it technically, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but it's not like what I'm going to talk about. So
yeah.
I got it. I got the segue. I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
All right.
We got no vampires.
So the latest trailer thing for Marvel Rivals shows the Fantastic Four entering against some big vampiric kind of character. So there you go. There you go. I've been playing a bunch of Marvel Rivals.
Nice.
Yo, so Kris, I've heard a lot of things about that game, and I haven't played it yet. And I'm not gonna lie to you, like, I feel like I'm kind of being gaslit by like a bunch of people who are like, "You should play this," and it's like, we have Overwatch at home.
Kind of, except we don't really have Overwatch anymore. So Overwatch at home is better than Overwatch.
Yeah.
Overwatch at home is Overwatch 2.
Yeah.
And this is honestly, I would say better, but it is like, I don't know. It's hard to say if it compares to like, the early days of Overwatch when everyone was playing it and it was
like
a lot of
fun.
fun.
Overwatch, right? Like
before they ruined it.
Like imagine your favorite game is StarCraft. I know it's a stretch for you, Will. And then imagine the StarCraft 2 that we got sucked or just went away from what we wanted. And then somebody else was like, hey, here's Wings of Liberty. And it's like, oh shit. Like, this is what I wanted. It's like,
that sounds like a terrible timeline, and I'm so happy that Wings of Liberty is the best RTS ever made.
Yeah.
That was Gundam Evolution until Bandai Namco fumbled it a few seasons in.
Yeah. But anyways, yes, it is. We basically don't have classic Overwatch anymore. This is classic Overwatch, but with characters that people like from like Marvel stuff.
Yeah, and there's enough distinction. Like, okay, so you can look at any kit of any character in Marvel Rivals and go, I see the Overwatch equivalent. but there's usually 1 or 2 Overwatch equivalents or a few little spins on each of them. So it's very rarely just like a 1-to-1, like, Mantis is kind of Zenyatta, but not quite.
Yeah. And they also feel
Star-Lord
the
is kind of Tracer, but not quite.
And abilities like are also true to the characters, the Marvel characters. So like Doctor Strange can like shoot like bursts of like almost like a burst rifle, but with his like spell needles or whatever. But he also has like he can do like the portals, and he can create portals, and you can just teleport from one.
Yeah, so he does like a Symmetra portal kind of thing.
Yeah. And Spider-Man straight up like runs around on webs, like flies around.
He's crazy mobile. Like, yeah. Then, like,
I love Rocket, dude. Rocket is like,
I haven't played him yet, but I've had people on my team with him, obviously. So he seems pretty awesome.
He's really.
What about the Punisher? What does he do?
The Punisher is
he is man with gun.
76. Yeah.
Does he shoot guns?
He shoots guns.
He
shoots gun and he kills gods with them.
Yeah, and
is the gun shooting interesting?
It's
the biggest distinction between it and Overwatch is that Marvel Rivals is third person as opposed to first person.
Because one of the things that like people were like, "Oh, Soldier's boring. You're playing Call of Duty," and then you like go play Soldier, and like this is fun actually. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I find the gunplay pretty fun. It's generally fluid and fast and snappy, and there's enough variety in both characters, guns, movesets, abilities, map functionality, destructibility, so you can just go, nah, I'm just gonna carve a path through this wall, fuck that.
Yeah.
It's
also there's destructible stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, and the Punisher he's a very good character, honestly, because he's good at long range because he's got an assault rifle. He can swap to a shotgun, so he's good at short range. So, Thor dives at him and he just shoots him.
And then his super, he whips out 2 chain guns that he holds like in each hand. And he's got like a backpack of like coiled rounds just coming out, and he just like mows down everything.
That's incredible.
When he basically does he go like in the Punisher arcade game?
That would be incredible, but I don't think he does.
Damn.
Although it does have the Overwatch thing of there are audio cues when people do ultimates and such, and these are global, so you can hear them, wherever. But then you hear the great moments of, you hear somebody charging it up, and then it just gets cut short as they get killed before it goes off, which is, a pretty common thing. Like Scarlet Witch, for example, her ult is like, the Diva Bomb. She just charges up energy and then blows up everything around her. Absolutely devastating, but she is also one of the squishiest characters in the game.
Yeah.
So her charge up, she goes like pure chaos. And so in this case, it's like, yeah, but it's pure chaos. It just cuts short.
Yeah.
As the Punisher shoots her with a gun.
It's good. Also, you can play as an adorable shark. Come on.
You can. You can play as Jeff the Land Shark.
Behold the greatest magic of all. Are you ready to meet God? And it's just like a 9mm.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, but it's free to play. I think it's really, really fun. It also totally works on Steam Deck.
I guess I'm adding it to the list once we get off this podcast.
Yeah. And it's really fun to just like
it's worth
play
to
with
just
friends.
check out. Yeah.
I
also find the queue times are incredibly short, not just because it has a big player base and everything, but like even in the Australian servers, me and my friends will hit go and then we go like instantly into character select sometimes. Like I don't think I've had to wait more than like 15 seconds for a match ever. It's wild.
Oh wow.
The only issues I've ever really had were with people like refusing to queue as either tank or healer. Like everybody just wants to
standard stuff.
Standard, like that was going on in Overwatch as well. And people
and
are
naturally
like,
it makes a lot of memes.
Yeah, people actually ask the developers like, give us like role queues, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that.
Good.
Please don't.
Yeah.
That was honestly why I stopped playing Overwatch, because when I wasn't playing Roadhog, I wanted to play DPS.
Yeah.
I would be your off tank. I would be Diva or Roadhog, and if I couldn't play that, I wanted to play DPS. I did not want to play Reinhardt.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, now you have to. And it's like, cool, I don't want to do that, so I'm just not going to play the game anymore.
Yeah. And they've straight up said, like, we're not doing that. So
you have the flexibility to, get your team comp or die in shambles.
Yeah.
Although I think Overwatch has done a thing now where role queue is no longer a thing.
I don't know.
There's
I
a
haven't played
version of
Overwatch in forever.
I have literally never played Overwatch 2, and I have no intention of it. So I might have played it when the PvE came out, but
Yeah.
I could be
joke.
making
Oh,
this
another.
up, but I feel like the devs have also said something along the lines of like they don't really care about balance, quote unquote, or being competitive. They just want to like do whatever wacky stuff they come up with for the superheroes.
Dude, I respect it.
yeah, I respect it.
As
Why
someone
not?
who I've been playing games with a long time once said, balance is the least important thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are people having fun with the characters that they want to play is way more important than balance.
Yeah.
Mm.
And if you
Absolutely.
sacrifice one for the other, like,
Do not sacrifice your fun for balance.
no.
Yeah.
Because people will stop. People will deal with bad balance.
See Helldivers 2. They took out-
Helldivers 2 in its own way
They
is
took out some of the fun.
kind of like it's arguably their way of handling it has been the worst way of handling it. Like
As
much
someone
love to
who
Helldivers
came
2,
back
of
for the
course.
most recent patch, they've done better.
Yeah.
It's
That's
fun
good.
again.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm saying. Like they screwed it up because they made the thing that was fun not as fun, and then they're like, whoa, people are stopping to play, and then they like reversed course and fixed it, and it's better now. You know. But you gotta
Cool.
you gotta remember that lesson. Like
Yeah, if you're going to balance, based on that, it's like do not remove so much player power that they're no longer having fun. Buff what is weak rather than nerf what is strong. And you
and
usually
the
have to do both, but
The funny thing is, like, it's easier to make that mistake in a competitive game, right? Because you want like all the characters to be good and you want all the
Yeah.
playstyles to be viable, right? Like when you
Yeah.
make that mistake in a PvE game, which is what Helldivers is.
yeah.
that's
like,
the thing.
why?
You should not. Yeah,
Who gives
who
a
are we
fuck if we're
competing
powerful?
against?
Yeah, who cares if like this one fun thing is too strong? Who does that hurt? The bugs? Are the bugs upset?
They shouldn't be because we're sharing freedom with them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean, though?
Hurts
Like
engagement
like,
somehow.
you have made the game worse to
It
help
hurts
nobody.
the season pass. Probably.
Who knows? Fucking yikes! I agree. You're gonna
That
get a
needs
lot
to
of
just be a
mileage out
bit.
of
I
that.
just need to like pull this out every once in a while, because we always get those every now and again.
That reminds
You
me,
get
I
a
was
lot of mileage.
actually gonna install Marvel Rivals this morning because I've been having like cover it for work, so I want to understand it. But it wanted 50 of the Lord's own gigabytes that I did not have available. So I'll come back later. Speaking of yikes.
But yeah, Marvel Rivals, fun. I've been playing it on and off with friends, both from across the pond and local. Generally works pretty well. I still have to deal with latency, of course, but it is obviously much better with my local friends. But yeah, it's good fun. There is generally like I'm not a huge comic person, but I know enough and play with people who are enough to go. Yeah, these are generally pretty good adaptations. The characters feel like true to themselves as well as filling good gaps in the different roles, and you can definitely see what the Overwatch and such abilities are, but even those weren't super original. It was the breakout kind of hero shooter at the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I saw that Galactus is pretty lore accurate. That was pretty nice of them too.
is he in it? I mean, he's not in it. He's not playable, obviously.
Well, I know
but
Galactus's daughter is like one of the main characters.
she's the
Oh, that's
narrator,
not Galactus. Okay.
Galactus is a big dude who eats planets. So.
Right. I thought they turned him into a.
Oh, you were being sarcastic. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was,
No. Okay, I heard this from my comic friend. So Galacta was like kind of a joke character, like the daughter of Galactus,
Mhm.
who was like this kind of anime girl thing, and she was in like a comic or whatever, like 10 years ago or something like that. Didn't go anywhere. Didn't go for much. It's like cool, one off, done. And then they brought her back for this to be the announcer, and everyone's
Incredible.
like, "What?"
I dig it. Like,
Okay.
why not? Marvel is dumb. Marvel is full of really
Oh,
dumb
it's incredibly dumb.
and it's great. Like that's one of the best things about it.
Oh yeah.
Comics be dumb.
I'm a little disappointed they didn't just like Moify Galactus, though.
I mean, who's to say? They still could.
Yeah, the rug could be pulled. It is not too late.
They still could.
Pull that rug.
Anyways, speaking of rug pulling and cool Marvel games, I've also been playing Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and Beyond, which is the
Tell me about this.
new mod.
If your game doesn't have Marvel in the title, Brian is not interested in the month of December.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a good thing it's January then.
It's
So
true.
much for
It's true.
Justice
January,
League Heroes
new
on the
January,
PlayStation
new
2.
me. But yeah, I mean, there has been a lot of good Marvel going around. And this mod is super, super fun. I streamed it earlier for some people in the Discord. And I've played some online matches. I've been unlocking character colors and doing like arcade mode and stuff. It's super, super fun. Like, I really like the changes that they've made. The art style is awesome. Like the UI looks better. It's super easy to install. Like, just go to, I think it's literally just mvcib.com.
Mm-hmm.
So how much does this actually change an ad? Because like I've
A
heard
lot.
that it was a thing, but I didn't know how much there was to it.
So they have redone the art style completely. I know this because I
Yep.
wrote about it in PC Gamer. They've redone the art style completely. They've done a lot of balance changes. They've made a lot of quality of life changes, like balance things beyond like, oh, this character's like one thing didn't do the thing it was supposed to. Like, no, we've actually made it so like if you raw tag, you're more vulnerable now. We don't want this to be like a thing that people were doing. So they've changed like individual character balance, and they've also like done meta balance. They've talked about potentially, I think they've added new characters, and they've talked about doing more of that. Brian can probably speak to it better than I can because he's played the thing at this point.
They added characters?
I don't know if they added characters, but they definitely did change how they worked. So like one of the things that I was mentioning earlier when we were talking, and Will obviously knows about this, but so Thanos in the original game and Thanos in the mod are different. In the mod, they gave him the Infinity Gauntlet and gave him the ability to use all of the Infinity Stones. Which,
yeah, he's basically a new character. That's what I was kind of talking about.
Yeah.
Like, he is not functionally the same character anymore.
Yeah. So in this game, this is the first time that it's been a 2v2 game in like a long time.
Yeah.
Since Marvel 1.
Was it Marvel 1?
Yeah.
Wow.
Marvel 2 isn't 3v3. Marvel 2 is, Marvel 3 is a 3v3. So it's been since Marvel vs. Capcom 1.
Yeah.
Which is like the fourth entry in the series for those of you who are keeping score at home.
Yeah. Because I was like, I think X-Men versus Street Fighter was also 2v2.
Yes.
But
the series started off as a 2v2 series.
Yeah. So it feels good to be 2v2 again. Like, I like that change. And then the other thing that you do after you've chosen your two characters is you choose one of the Infinity Stones, and they'll have a regular, like almost assist-like function that you'll have, and then they have like the full power version. So let's say the Space Stone or whatever, it will, it will, I forget what the base thing does. Well, the stone that I typically use is the Soul Stone. So the Soul Stone will like, it'll shoot a beam forward, and it'll like leech some vitality from your opponent. And then after you use it, or you wait enough time, your gauge will fill up, and then you hit the Infinity Storm button, and with the Soul Stone, it will revive your second character, and then you play as both characters at the same time for a period. And there's other things as well, like the Space Stone creates like this box around your enemy so they can't escape, and they're stuck in one place on the screen for a while. There's a bunch of stuff that happens depending on which stone you use, but because they gave Thanos the Infinity Stone, or the Infinity Gauntlet, he has all of those. So he can do all of those like assist functions. And they said they worked really hard to like make sure he wasn't like just broken, because he can do like everything. But yeah, it's really cool. I didn't play very much of the base game, so I'm not, and I haven't read up a bunch on the balance changes, but it feels great. I mean, MVCI
the base
already
game is good.
felt really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest issue with the game was simply just,
it looks
presentation, presentation,
Yeah.
presentation, lack of characters, presentation, and that was mostly it.
Yeah. But they added more like new gameplay modes. They added like a new super tough final boss fight for the arcade mode that I think only 5 people in the world have beaten.
Damn.
Wow.
Um,
It's
Put a
going
SNK
full
boss in
SNK,
there.
yeah.
yeah. So I beat and I did arcade mode because if you get like sick to the 6th fight in arcade mode with your character, this is a little PSA. You'll unlock the 3rd slot, and then if you do that again, you'll unlock the 4th color slot for your character. So go in there and do that. You can just set it to like easy mode or whatever and set your damage to high and make it really fast. But so I was doing that, and even on normal difficulty, like that final boss is tough. It's very difficult. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. They also have like Cross Fever, which you can do like 2x KO style, like control like two people per team. Then there's like other stuff like Cross Frenzy, single Cross Frenzy, different modes that you can do that they added like custom to the game. You can also play online. Like I was actually playing through arcade mode, and you can play arcade mode and let yourself be challengeable online. So there were a couple of times where I would be going through arcade mode and it would be like, here comes a new challenger. And then it would throw me into a match against somebody else. But you got to be careful though, because those people who are online in this game are like disgusting at this game. So be careful out there.
It's sicko time all the time.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
it is. It is. But yeah,
Shout
it's
out
really,
to the
really
12
fun.
people still playing MVCI.
Yeah, super easy to install. Like all you got to do is go to mvcib.com, download it, and then just drag that folder to where your Steam thing is, merge it, and you're done. That's it.
That's sick.
I've gotten it to work on Steam Deck as well. Like I modded it on Steam Deck as well, but it runs a little bit slower. I'm trying to figure out a fix for that. But if I do, I will do like a little tutorial on how to like get this mod running on your Steam Deck, and I'll like put that out there for people.
Cool.
Yeah, super, super fun. It's the connections are really good. It looks like Marvel 3, which is just a really beautiful game. If you're looking for a cool Marvel fighting game, it's the new hotness. So try it out.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome. Good to hear it. Infinite really was a fun game when it came out.
Yeah.
It just had too much baggage because of everything else. So it's nice to see it treated this way.
I still am really bummed out that like most of my characters are just not in this game. Like I played in the previous games, I played Magneto and Akuma and like a bunch of Iceman, and these characters are just not in this game. So,
because they're not in the MCU movies currently.
Virgil, but even like Virgil is not in there. No, he's not in there. It's only
That's
Dante.
Crazy. No, Akuma.
Oh yeah, Akuma's not in there. Yeah, Ryu and Chun-Li are in there, but no other Street Fighter characters.
It is a much smaller roster than I think people who are used to playing MVC would be used to.
Yeah,
but it is like functionally, as far as a game that you can play, it is still very good. I think at the time Disney was actively trying to kill the X-Men as an IP, so people would stop watching the Fox movies so they could get the rights back. Which is like, it has to be said, right? Like they pulled like half the comic series that were being published under the X-Men name from shelves. Like they canned all of them.
Yeah.
Like none of the games had X-Men characters. Like this was an intentional thing that they did.
Yeah.
It sucks. It sucks that this was like a stray that just the visual style and not having X-Men was just two really huge haymakers to Marvel lovers, and it sucks. But there are
what your Megacorps.
I mean, kind of like what we were talking about with Marvel Rivals, the Overwatch character equivalents. Like there are characters in this game that are functionally similar to older ones. Like I was playing Doctor Strange earlier because our buddy Ronnie recommended him to me, and as everybody knows, if you know my fighting game tastes, Ronnie somehow is dialed into like my soul and just knows what I would like.
Ronnie is basically always right.
Yeah, every character that he said I should play was like the right decision, and the only thing that will change is like how quickly I will listen to him or not. And so I checked out Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is basically Magneto plus Jean Grey, like a trap character plus a fly around and do like big like zoning stuff and fast moving stuff and flight and all that sort of stuff. So
Plus, he's a wizard.
Plus, he's a
or
wizard.
sorcerer in this case.
Yeah, which Dr. Doom is not in this game. Like, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah, they were messing with Fantastic Four at the same time too, or maybe even earlier.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's good. It's good. So you should play it. Rocket Raccoon is mad fun. I love him. He's a trap character. He's fun. Jeddah from Darkstalkers is in it. He's really fun. It's good stuff. Check it out.
Good times. And again, full credit to the mod makers and everyone who was responsible for that and breathing life into a game like that.
Yeah. They did a great job. They did a public service for us all. Lucas, what you got?
What I got? All right. So right before we started recording, an embargo lifted for the first game review of the year, baby. So I've been playing, among other things, Ys, Memoir, The Oath in Felghana.
That's one. That's
where did you review it for?
6?
Check News. It is Ys 3.
3. I always get those two confused for some reason.
Yeah, so this game is I wouldn't call it a remaster. It's basically a port with some little sprinkles added to it.
Wow. I typed that into the show notes, and autocorrect had the correct spelling of Felghana.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
Someone at Google plays Ys.
That's one for the culture, isn't it?
Hell yeah. Yeah, so it's originally a PSP and PC game, which itself is a remake of Ys 3, which
was garbage.
Yeah.
It needed the remake.
Mm-hmm. And that came out on like old PCs and Super Nintendo and stuff.
I think I played the SNES version of that originally and got like 10 minutes in. It was like, what the fuck is this? And just ditched it. Like, I cannot describe to you how awful the combat was in the original Ys 3. So yeah.
The funny thing about Ys is you don't think it would be a game where you could just play the like first several original ones, but those all got localized.
Yeah.
On multiple platforms even.
Far earlier than any other Falcom game did, maybe because less text, I don't know.
Had the turbo graphics needed games, I guess.
Yeah.
So Ys is interesting overall, I think, because it has really distinct like eras to it where the like gameplay and everything really gets overhauled. You see it now with the way Ys looks from like 8 up till X, which just came out, or 10, whatever. The original Ys games very closely resembled visually Zelda kind of gameplay.
Yeah, top down kind of. You're a sword dude.
Sword dude, top down. Funnily enough, Ys 3 was a side scroller, so you can still kind of make the Zelda comparison just with Zelda 2. But so when Ys comes around to the PSP, they kind of change it from like a sort of Zelda looking thing to a much more like fast-paced hack and slash kind of thing. It's really hard to describe it in a way that like compares it to anything else. For me, it's just like, oh, that looks like a old Japanese PC game, and I don't know how to describe it in any other way. It's like it's still top down, but it moves very, very fast. It's all about the combat. The music is like super heavy metal most of the time. It's more combat, less awesome stuff. Yeah. Big boss fights. Yeah. And they always just something about these games, despite just you running around and mashing slash most of the time. They have really distinct vibes.
Do they actually put like an attack button in, or you still run into dudes?
Yeah, so in the original 2 Ys games, they had people call it the bump system, where it was like you just make contact to attack. Ys 3, they gave you a slash button, and then these PSP ones, it's all about mashing buttons. You can jump, you can do all kinds of air stuff, especially when you get like abilities that have you like spinning around in the air, so you can like cross gaps or just juggle things to death even better.
Are there aerial raves in this game, Lucas?
Oh, 100%.
Oh yes.
And these are very rudimentary. Ease games after this one would add even more stuff. This is
I
kind of
love
like their
aerial
first
rays.
try.
You have sold me on the video game.
Hell yeah.
East games are fun, man. They're pretty solid.
Listen, I played Origins, but those are the only ones I played.
Yeah, so Origins is like the super version of this. So like
I think Origins was literally the one that came out after Felghana, the remake of it. So yeah,
that would make sense. Yeah, so like if you played Ys Origins back in the day, and that's a game that really started to kind of put it back in people's minds because it was so fucking good. This is like the precursor to that, basically. It's like 12 hours long. The boss fights are really intense. Sometimes they're very frustrating. I feel like there's a lot of moments where it's like, I guess I'm dead now. Sure, I'll try again.
Doesn't pull its punches.
Yeah, and in ways that it doesn't often give you clear answers to, like I think later games do. So it's kind of rough around the edges in that way. But East is cool because it's got like a timeline to it that's like really deliberate. You're the same character. You're this red-haired kid who can never sail a boat without crashing it somewhere. He loves adventure. He will meet a new friend who is a lady, solve all her problems, and then leave her at the end of the day because he has, a new adventure to find out.
And he has a silent protagonist, and all the speech is done by the blue-haired companion. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like all of the lore is like travel journals from this guy as like an old man, basically. And they're like he writes them deliberately dryly to like let the reader kind of develop their own picture of what happened in his adventures. Blah, blah, blah. So it's like this whole sort of just like this big one guy's ridiculous life full of crazy stuff. That's the whole like framing of it.
They're all self-contained adventures as a result too. Like, despite there being 10 of them, you can pick up any one of them in any order and just go for it. All you need to know is you are Adol. Yeah,
Adol Kristen, and they always make a point of like saying how old he is in each game, so you can kind of like, all right, oh, this is where it is,
Yeah.
Ys 10 recently usurped Ys 3 in the timeline, actually. So it was Ys 1, 2, and 3 chronologically. Then with Ys 10, they were like, we're gonna squeeze this in between 2 and 3 because we said so.
Street Fighter 6 situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What order should I play in? Well, you should play 1, 2, and then 10, and then
yeah.
Disgusting.
But like Kris said, they're self-contained generally. So you and a lot of them came out of order on purpose. So it's just kind of like you can piece it together in your head if you want because it's like a fun thing to do, but it's not like a huge deal.
They're all relatively just self-contained.
Yeah. I like this game a lot. It was one of those situations where it's like I didn't actually play it on PSP, but I was like aware of it, and I played a bunch of other Ys games on PSP, so it was like, oh, I kind of know what this is, and nothing's really surprising me. So when I reviewed it, I was just kind of like, yeah, thumbs up.
It's a solid game. It was my first proper entry to it, aside from trying like the SNES versions, and then immediately just going, bouncing off.
Nah. Yeah, these are really cool games, and I think because of the way that they change so dramatically over time, and because of the way they kind of have fun with the story idea, it's really worthwhile to like jump around and just try different ones. So if you've been kind of like new to it with the more modern games, I really recommend going back. It's not like is it old and hasn't aged well and quality of life, blah blah blah. It's like no, they're really like different types of games entirely.
Yeah, and they hold up quite well.
They do. A lot of fun, especially like we mentioned Ys Origins. That's been known as a high point for a long time. I think Ys 1 and 2 are really interesting. There's lots of different versions of those you can try.
Yeah, they remade them as well, and that's on Steam. So
yeah, there's those remakes on Steam and PSP. There was a DS one that's very different. There's a typing version. I learned that the other day when I was reading about stuff. But yeah,
Where
I
you
think
learn how to type the title of the game.
Yes. over and over and over again until you get it right.
Excellent.
And then they make you pronounce it into a microphone.
And everyone has failed. Yeah.
That's
From
that's
the
the
mid-90s.
equivalent of like the Dark Souls boss at the beginning of every game that you're supposed to lose to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
pronunciation of Is is the asylum demon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Is Memoir, the Oath in Felghana. They added the memoir to it to, I guess, be like, oh, it's new. It is new to the platforms it's on. So this is just for Switch and PlayStation. So you can still play the other Oath of Felghana with slightly less stuff in it that doesn't really matter. Like they gave Adol some voice lines, and they redid the character portraits, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, you can play it on PC. You can play it on PSP if you have one of those still. Play it on Vita if you really
PSP is seaworthy if you
drag
don't
your
have
Vita
any of
out.
those.
Yeah, if you do have a PSP, check it for battery bulging, please.
Yes, as someone who did that this year and found both my wife's and mine were, bulging, those are dangerous. Please check.
Yeah, not fun.
Still don't know where mine is in my house.
You're gonna learn soon. Either way.
The odds of it actually like catching fire are very low, but it's still dangerous.
Yeah.
So
the odds of being killed by a PSP are low, but never zero.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would redouble my efforts to find it just after that sentence. Like, how did he die? Well,
I don't want to be taken out by one of the more successful handhelds.
So get this shit right.
Brian only dies to niche handhelds.
It's true. That's my only weakness. It's my only weakness. I'm immortal otherwise. I'm
bringing an Engage the next time you and I are sharing a hotel room.
I want to Engage so bad. It's got
like my
weird
buddy who
stuff
had
on
the
it.
who had the old God, what was the old Microsoft
the Zune?
Yes.
The Zune, yes.
Jesus Christ.
He had a Zune
the Zune
he would
was actually pretty good.
He might actually still have that straight up, but he had like a Mustang and was just like rocking the Zune still. It's crazy.
So over the holidays, we were decorating our tree. Sorry, I cut you off.
So good. There's just
real quick.
Joke, go for it.
This Zune slander will not stand, Lucas.
We had this ornament. It was like a Scooby-Doo ornament. It plays the theme song, but it was well past its change battery date. We like push the button and it's like. So I take the batteries out and they're in my hand and I'm walking to the kitchen to throw away. It just goes bang, like pops right in my hand.
Wow.
Hurt like oh man, it hurt so bad.
Ow.
Were you about to say it hurt like Jesus?
I don't know what I was going to say. I just got tongue-tied there.
Everything can hurt like Jesus if you're brave enough.
But yeah, I can't imagine that happening with something significantly bigger than those little cell batteries.
You probably lose fingers.
Probably, yeah.
Eesh.
Don't lose fingers.
It's pronounced East, Kris.
Yeah, just play East. Don't
me to it. Damn it.
I think I've said pretty much all there is to say about it. But yeah, it's a cool game. It's not the best Ease, but it's still pretty neat and cool, and you should play every Ease you have time for, I think.
And if you like that, then you should go into the Trails.
Trails is cool too.
Yes. Something to do while waiting for the Trails in the Sky remake.
Trails of
or Tokyo Xanadu 2, as I am. I'm more excited for that somehow.
That's actually getting a sequel, is it? Neat.
Yeah.
I've actually played that one. Wow.
Decent.
I'm waiting for them to do a new version of Trails of Cold Stone Creamery.
Hell yeah. Get the ice cream lore.
Yeah. The ice cream that they forced to into a war as a student. It's crazy.
That's it exactly.
Oh, we have to eat the Empire's ice cream now.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right, Will, why don't you drag us off to a faraway land?
A World of Warcraft, you say?
A world.
So I've been playing WoW recently because I got the new expansion. And realistically, I'm not actually going to talk about the new expansion at all. I'm going to talk about the anniversary event, which is what is I've been mostly doing since I got the new expansion. And once
it's
it
wrapping up
ends
tomorrow.
tomorrow, yep, I will be doing new expansion. So the anniversary event has been very cool, and it's also made me think a little bit. Um, World of Warcraft is 20 years old,
Yeah, wild.
which
Jesus.
is nuts to think about, but it is. And
Hmm.
it's also so what Blizzard did basically for this was they took a bunch of old stuff, like they brought back the original Blackrock Depths. They brought back a bunch of the
Oh,
old dungeons, like the actual raid BRD. They brought back several of the old dungeons, Dead Mines, Two Wings of Dire Maul, both Wings of Strathholm, and Sulfuroc, I think.
Yeah. So far,
CF.
And they have a big, some of the most popular, dungeons. And they have a big
yeah,
thing in
classic time
Tanaris.
walking is now in rotation. For
Yeah,
those who do know.
which is amazing, right? And it's super fun. And they've brought back this big thing in Tanaris. Actually, this is new. I mean, like there wasn't an anniversary event always where you could go do fun stuff, but now it's like
Yeah,
triple in size what it used to be.
yeah.
And
It's been getting bigger over the years, and it's always at right out the front of Caverns of Time, and they'll probably continue to. I imagine that's like the base, sort of like the new Dark Moon Fair thing they did. It's like this is.
the
I
base
say
for
new.
whatever
I
we're
say
gonna
new,
do.
but that's like 15 years old at this point. Yeah, this is like the base for the anniversary thing, and they'll probably just bring back iterations of it every year. So
I hope so. I think that it's really cool what they've done.
yeah,
But the big thing is for me is how much effort they've clearly put into this to bring all this stuff back and be like, okay, you can play like old Caverns of Time, or sorry, you can play old Dead Mines. Like you can go to the Taverns of Time and ring the Scarab Gong, right? Like just as a fun little thing that
Man.
you can do. You can go and you can go play like all these fun little like quests that take
mini
you all over
games.
the different expansions where you're like helping some like this person who's like the assistant guest relations manager, and people are like losing stuff, and it's characters from all over the place. Leroy Jenkins has like a fried chicken stand. It's very goofy and very silly, but it's also like very fun, and it's fun to see like the characters that have been in World of Warcraft for so long like come back, and everybody's in the same place and you can talk to them, and you can do these fun little quests where you like go explore secrets of the world that don't actually tell you where anything is. It like gives you hints, and it's like here's some items that'll help you, but unless you're looking on Wowhead or something, like you actually have to go solve the problems. They've
Yeah,
got
it
a
took
variable.
people a long time to actually solve all those, and there's still secrets to find, apparently. Like, there was
Yeah,
a long, yeah, it's become a very, very long quest chain that you can do, like doing all those and solving all the little mysteries and murder mysteries and such.
yeah, I
And
finished it the other day. I
yeah,
still
it's
have to find the
extensive.
crates, which I'm going to do tonight, probably after this podcast.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's been because it does in tomorrow morning, so I may just stay up until it ends to finish everything and then go to bed. But uh, what's interesting to me is like while I was playing it, and I will be writing a piece on this today, or
Ooh.
probably in the next couple days. I sold it today. Is like how many games would never get to do this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
anything like this, because World of Warcraft is. We can argue like the quality of certain expansions or like the game overall or whatever, right? But the reality is World of Warcraft is massively important in the history of like games as a thing.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
And
hugely influential and changed everything.
literally like there is a pre-World of Warcraft video game discussion and a post-World of Warcraft video game discussion. And that is the reality, right? And like it
Love it or
changed the
hate
way
it, you cannot ignore it.
yeah, it changed the way that games are designed and made, and like a lot of the stuff that it did is still being done in games like Destiny. And the cool thing about that is like seeing all this history that they've brought back so people can experience it, and also realizing hey, like most games would never be allowed to live long enough to get to this point today. Like we will never have something like
Correct.
this again, because if you're not immediately successful, we're going to kill you. And WoW was immediately successful, but like it took years for it to get to like more people play this game than live in the state of Georgia. um
Yeah, it continued to build traction and then kind of peaked around. I don't know. I honestly don't know when it peaked, but like
I think probably like Wrath was like the
Wrath
biggest.
was where it breached like the major milestones of like 10 million concurrent, and everyone's like, "What
Yeah,
the
it was
fuck
like
is
10
this?"
million, 12 million concurrent subscribers, which is an insane number, and nothing will ever do that again.
Hmm.
Um, and like it just made me sad because on the one hand, like it was super fun to revisit all this stuff and see like how much care had clearly been put into like look at all the fun things you can do, but also like this will never happen again for any video game. Nothing will ever get the chance to do this again. And maybe FF14, if it lasts 20 years, will have the ability to do something like this, but like nothing else. And
Is the
I don't know,
closest
it was a
thing that
really
comes to
interesting
mind.
thing,
Oh,
like
good. Sorry.
because I was not only like walking through like the history of the game and the history of like probably the most important MMO ever made, but like the history of the medium where like things were allowed to get bigger over time and like be successful and build these massive fan bases. And now it's like this will never happen again.
Yeah, the closest thing that comes to mind is like, besides Final Fantasy, is like Warframe, and that's like a game that more exists in a like, it's like a niche big enough to sustain it, but it's not on the scale of WoW or even close to it.
No,
Yeah, and it'll never have even if it gets to 20 years, which it probably will at this point. It's like
Yeah,
I doubt they'll ever have a celebration quite to the same scale.
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and you know it'll never have a South Park episode or anything like that. Like
No.
WoW had an amount of cultural like mind share that nothing is ever gonna have again. Like I mean that's not true. Like Fortnite, you know, stuff like that. But like as like a subscription based game, like that's never gonna happen again. As a game that lasts that long, again, maybe Fortnite lasts 20 years, but it won't be the same.
Yeah.
You know,
Fortnite also
is
kind of
not like
lacks its own identity. It borrows from everything else. It is the
it is
melting
Ready
pot.
Player One, the video game.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Whereas WoW is still very much its own thing, and it's something that like when you go back to it, it's like wow, there's a lot of respect there for what this game is, and it's very cool. And I'll probably write about it more in depth. And I'm gonna let somebody else talk now, but it was really cool to see it, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'll be sad when the anniversary celebration goes away because I've had a lot of fun doing it. But I hope that they will bring it back next year, and I hope that like you know when BC turns 20 in a couple years, they'll be like, hey, 20th anniversary of Burning Crusade, like we're gonna make a bunch of fun BC stuff, right? Like I hope that they'll keep doing this because it's rare to see something.
Yeah, let's go run Serpent Shrine again.
Yeah, like
with the glitch Vosh. Have fun.
Yeah, go do Vosh, go do Kael'thas, go fight Illidan. Like it's rare to see something get the opportunity to do this, and it made me realize like not only how much time has passed, but like how much we've lost in that time, and like how special these little things are because they will never happen again. So,
yeah.
Somebody else talk.
I will say you are actually touching on something that I felt a lot in, of all things, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, because a lot of that game touches on, yeah, you tap your watch all you want. I'm fucking right, though. Because the whole,
it was
huge stretch
an
of that
hour
game.
and 12 minutes until Kris mentioned Yakuza.
Go play Yakuza, all of you. That's, especially you, Brian. No, I bring it up because, again, like Infinite Wealth, a lot of there is a huge stretch of the game where it has Kiryu kind of reflecting on himself and his adventures and his, legacy and everything, because at that point, he is dying, basically. And he is, it is reflecting through all that, and they're all just going through that. And it does a lot to kind of go through his life and how he feels about things and how, what he has left behind, or if he has made the right choices. And it does, like, a huge part of it is just kind of analyzing him and that. And that's easily the highlights of it. Like, Ichiban stuff and that is still great. The overall plot is still great, but that was the part that captured my attention. And it was one of those things where it's like it's so rare for a game to get this kind of experience where you have a character that has persisted this long, this many games, and it is probably uniquely Like a Dragon that can do that, because obviously it is set, contemporary. Every game is released contemporary to when it is made.
Mm-hmm.
So the events of the first Yakuza happen in 2005. Infinite Wealth takes place at the end of 2022. That kind of thing. It is always contemporary to that, and as a result, the time progresses, the technology changes, attitudes and everything in society will pivot, and even the Yakuza themselves have been more and more, distant as that, the kind of the noble, the lawful evil protecting us from the chaotic evil has very much been proven false time and again, and the Yakuza are being cracked down harder in Japan and everything as well. So all the real contemporary precedent is affecting the story of the games and the characters therein, and it's so rare that there is a series that is actually narrative focused enough to have the time to sit and reflect on those with the characters in there. Because any other long running series either doesn't care about its narratives to the same extent, or doesn't care about its worlds to the same extent as World of Warcraft does.
Or
Like,
isn't being told basically in real time, which I think is a
exactly.
huge factor there. Yeah.
Yeah, but you'll
Like,
never get something, you'll never see Call of Duty do something like that, even though it's, had as long a lifespan, because it's all just individual one-shots which don't really care about the story that much. Like, there are exceptions. Some have more to say than others. Some have more continuous narratives than others, for better
yeah,
and for worse, but it's not the same. And it's so interesting and rare an opportunity to reflect on that. And I am actually writing something about that. So, yeah,
yeah.
companion piece to Will's, I guess.
The thing that pops into my mind just from that is like wrestling. Wrestling is a real time story, especially like just the WWE or whatever. It is a story that has been told in real time over decades. The characters get old and they die, and that stuff is all like part of the story in a way that's like, if you really zoom out at wrestling, that's essentially what's happening.
Yeah, there's some interesting
Yeah,
stuff about that. I
it's
don't pay any attention to it, but I'm adjacent enough to enough of it to hear little bits and pieces and go, it's kind of cool.
yeah, it's just like a fascinating aspect of it you'll never really think about unless you're like prompted to. Um, but
On
yeah,
this podcast live by someone who's reminding you of something you hate.
exactly.
I'm fucking around. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, like these kinds of stories
I get you,
are.
Lucas. I get you.
Thank you. It's rare because it's just like so many different circumstances have to line up for that kind of story to be told.
Yeah. And I take the piss, but that is really cool. And that's another thing. Like, what is it? Harada got an award for having the in Tekken like the longest running story in video games history because it just keeps
Yeah, that's
going.
true. It is the same. Yeah.
And that's awesome. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, you also get like Final Fantasy VII, which is different, but is still kind of like revisiting it.
Yeah.
After a long time and kind of continuing with its legacy. Then you got something like Saga, where the games aren't really related, but the same guy's been in charge the whole time, and so by
You can see
like
the evolution of the one designer, which is
yeah,
interesting in itself.
And the interesting thing about that is, oh, sorry, go ahead, Lucas.
that's pretty much Kris finished my sentence for me perfectly. Yeah,
Gotcha.
you can see in the game the kind of the changes they're building on each other.
Yeah.
Because of that. Yeah.
The thing I was gonna say is, Will had a great example in Final Fantasy 14, which takes like both of those things into account, like the Yakuza thing of reflecting the real world and the building a story up over a long period of time. Because like a Realm Reborn is only a Realm Reborn because the first version of the game sucked.
And
So
they account for that in the story.
Yes.
That was a canonical event, the destruction of the first one.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's hard to oversell like how important that stuff is, right? Like being willing to be like, you know what, fuck it, like we're doing it, And I
it
think,
means something.
Yeah.
to have like, that in a lot of cases, like Square is just being very brave with the way they're handling that stuff. But it's.
Do you think they're brave by default, or do you think they have to? I'm sorry, I'll see myself out.
Just give him a second.
My headset is covering the throbbing vein. But yeah, I think like making a conscious choice to preserve and like work the failures of the story into the story and work the failures of the game into the game and like be like, you know what, this is how we're going to handle this, is like that's a choice, because a lot of the time it's this isn't working, we're going to nuke it.
The
throw it
business
away, do
takes over
something
for the
else.
creative, yeah.
Yeah, and Square, for whatever else their problems are, has very rarely done that with their long running stuff. And good for them. And Blizzard also, like, WoW especially, like, they don't care, I don't think, about, like, okay, we put out a bad expansion, but, like, we're not pulling the plug on this, like. And there have been periods where, like, things were not good.
Yeah.
In
Oh,
World
yeah.
of Warcraft land, like, actually bad, right? Like, and not successful.
DFA into Shadowlands was very nearly the
Rough.
death knell of that game.
I
Yeah,
remember
and they
some
just kept
doomer
doing it anyway.
headlines.
And, like, they're being
But they swallowed their
rewarded now.
pride. They swallowed their pride. They reflected. They looked on it. They actually started listening to the community and working on that better. And then Dragonflight happened, and it's like, wow, this is a market improvement. Good job.
Yeah, and people really like Dragonflight. And I really like
Yeah.
Dragonflight. And, like, I think The War Within is off to a great start based on what I've
Mhm.
seen of, like, just, like, I've run a few of the dungeons and stuff. Like, they're very clearly, like, okay, we're going to try something new, right? And I think, like,
Yeah.
like Square, they've built the cultural cachet where they have the power to, because, like, it's still Blizzard, right? Like, they, we can complain, but, like, they have the ability to be like, fuck it, we're still Blizzard. Like, we're going to do this.
They might not be, 90s Blizzard, but people still respect them.
Yeah, like, they
whether we like to or not.
They have that, like, built up goodwill, which has taken, a pretty substantial hit in the last few years, but I think they've done a decent job of, like, rebuilding it in important ways. And so is Square, where they're like, you know what, fuck it, like, we have enough capital, like, with our fan base, like, with the industry, where we can afford to do this.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of places that have that don't do it.
Or that squander it. Hello, Bethesda.
Yeah, or, like, like, we dunk on EA, right? But, like, EA has the money to absorb basically any failure. They could have redone Anthem if they'd wanted to. 100%. Like, the amount of money they would have spent to fix that game would have been a rounding error on their books, and they chose not to do it.
Which is a shame, because I would have
It
loved
is.
to see
It's
what
a shame.
they could have done.
I would have too. But that's the distinction, right? Is the, like, there are people at those companies, because I'm not going to say there are companies. Companies do not exist and not make decisions, right? They're not living organisms. But there are people in those places who have been like, no, we're going to do this thing. And they have managed to build a legacy out of that and build goodwill. And so when you come back to it now, like, WoW being a 20-year game was not an inevitability.
Yeah.
It was.
It was never planned to be. Certainly.
Yeah.
CD Projekt could have done that with Cyberpunk. That was a
And they didn't.
travesty forever.
Mm-hmm.
And
No Man's Sky is the big one, of course.
Yeah, No Man's Sky. And there are tons and tons and tons of examples. Like, Master Chief Collection is another one. That game didn't work when it released.
Oh, it was broken as shit.
It was broken. It functionally did not work. And they have spent several years since then being like, oh, we're going to fix it. And then we're going to put in new stuff that was never in those games, or, like, we're going to bring over, like, the original effects that got cut when we were building the game because we used the PC version, right? Like, they don't have to do that, but people remember when they do. And it affects the way that we look at these things, because, games are a product, but they're also art. And like, honestly, like, one of the most fun things I had this holiday was just running around and doing the 20th anniversary stuff with my dad, because we could both be like, he'd been playing since BC and I've been playing since vanilla, and be like, oh, this is cool, right? Like, somebody gave a shit.
Yeah.
And that is increasingly rare, and I just don't think any game that is a live service game that releases now, I hate that fucking term, but any game that is, like, a long time online game is ever going to get to do this again. And, like, seeing WoW do it is like, man, we could have had much more of this. Like, I was talking to Timo, friend of the podcast, Timo, about, like, City of Heroes. Could you imagine what City of Heroes could have done if it had 20 years?
That would have been
Or Star Wars
awesome.
Galaxies?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and even, like, SWTOR's well over 10 years old at this point, and it will, when it gets to that point, it won't have the same kind of celebration, because it's not that kind of game. It wasn't built in that kind of way or that kind of mentality. And while it's still trucking along, and it's still, it got significantly better after the initial thing. Yeah. Like I said, like, after a couple of expansions, they just secretly released KOTOR 3 in it. Like,
Yeah, I like Old Republic, but I do think like it is meaningful when companies that have amassed this money and amassed this power to amassed this power and money to be able to do like we're going to do this stuff and spend it in meaningful ways. Like when they were like, "Oh, it's the 20th anniversary," I thought it would be like a fun little small anniversary celebration. Like, no, this is big. Like, takes up a good chunk of this zone, and it sends you all over to every expansion to do this stuff. Somebody had to write this stuff and voice act it and put it in the game, and there's so many little secrets and Easter eggs and fun little references that don't feel cheap. Right, which is the other thing. Like, I was watching The Mummy and then The Mummy Returns over the break.
Love those movies.
They're great, and I was thinking about callbacks, and I'll probably write something about this for the secret thing that we are not ready to announce yet, but we'll probably announce maybe next time. By that time, hopefully it'll be up. But there's that bit in the first one where I don't know what this symbol is. It's a stork. It's a Menephis, right? And then the kid in the second one, I don't know what this symbol is. And the guy from the first one's like, I know that one, right?
Yeah.
Because he was the dude. And it doesn't call attention to itself, right? Like, it's never like, oh, this happened because blah, 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 blah. Like, it's a clever writing trick because it's the same book. It's the same characters. And it's like, oh, that feels earned. So, like, when Leroy Jenkins shows up with a fucking fried chicken stand, it's like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Everybody
knows Leroy Jenkins. It's say what you will about it. That was a moment in time that was captured in posterity.
Right, but it doesn't feel cheap, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
Right, it's not like the fucking blue milk joke, right? Like it's
God. Speaking of how to do nostalgia wrong.
Yeah, like it's more along the lines of like this makes sense. And like you can have those little nostalgia tugs that don't do that, which I think is like what makes the 20th anniversary celebration cool is like it's a nostalgia trip. It's look at all this cool stuff that has been in this game forever and we're going to bring it back so you can appreciate it. But it doesn't feel cheap.
It feels like it was done with love, both out of respect to it and to its legacy, and made by creative people.
Yeah, and it doesn't call attention to itself. It's never like, oh, Leroy Jenkins opened a fried chicken stand because would you like to go watch the viral video? No, it's just like, here's a fried chicken stand. It's funny.
Mm-hmm. You laugh if you get it. You move on if you don't. It's good.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Also, the updated armor sets look dope.
They look great. And again, it's like it's a little small detail.
Yeah.
But it matters, man. Like, it matters to get this stuff right and to not be like, this is old, we don't care. This wasn't immediately successful, we don't care.
Yeah. So. And it's much like how they patched, Warcraft 3 Reforged finally and did all that stuff. It's like, yeah,
this stuff matters.
Yeah. They're trying to at least make sure, stuff that matters and is classic and, well regarded is still preserved in its own way.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you want rather than the cash grab remakes and all that other shit where it's like, we recognizable brand, recognizable marketing thing, we'll latch onto that. It's like, no, don't.
Yeah. So, and it was really great to see it, and it also made me very sad that no other game will get to do that.
Yeah.
Well, here's to a future where that is not true. Hopefully we can build one.
Hopefully we'll live to see it.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I mean, I intend to be immortal. Worked out so far.
I will never die. I haven't died yet, so what's stopping me, right?
Exactly.
Wouldn't you say we're about due? All right.
Anyway,
what next, guys?
It's your turn.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Come full circle.
I've got several things. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Speaking of full circle, I've been playing a game that did not come out last year, but the year before. Has
Oh my
anybody
God.
here played
Old
Gravity
game is
Circuit?
old.
No.
Gravity Circuit.
Gravity
No.
Circuit. Mm-mm.
Okay. This game is mad good. They gave it out for free on Epic a while back. It is basically Mega Man. It's really fun.
Ooh.
The story is basically just like Mega Man X.
The thumbnail on Steam, just like, yeah, that's Mega Man. Got it.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. Sound effects are great. Visuals are great. I mean, it is. I
Overwhelmingly
don't.
positive.
There's not really much to say. So the wrinkles on this are, you're kind of like Mega Man X or Zero, kind of, where you have like melee attacks. You also have like when you hold up and do your attack, you'll do like a jump up kick, and you also have a grappling hook. And so the grappling hook you can use to attach to the ceiling, to pull yourself up to ledges and then climb up onto certain types of ledges. You can also swing like over pits and things, but you can also use it in combat. It works as a hit, so and it goes like maybe half the screen, 2/3 of the screen. So you can do it like X Buster, or the P shoot or whatever they called it in the old games. But when you defeat an enemy, they will turn gray, and you can grapple them and then throw them at other enemies. So it's way more like action than that. It's like almost like Mega Man, like Devil May Cry 4. Where it's like you're jumping around, you're using your grappling hook to get around, you like grapple to an enemy, do a couple hit combo, hit them up in the air, like grapple their body, grab them, throw them against somebody else. Like enemies will throw like bombs at you. You can grab them out of the air and throw them back and blow them up. It's awesome. I'm having so much fun with it. I'm not that far in. It's not like the deepest thing in the world. It's basically just like, do you like these old school like retro games? If you do, this is a great one. So yeah, I highly recommend it. It's been what I've been playing on my Steam Deck after I beat Metaphor, which I might get into later. But yeah, Gravity Circuit, really really good. If you've been redeeming your free Epic games, go check your library because it might just be in there.
What is this?
Gravity Circuit.
Wonder if it's in there for me. I have not been redeeming my Epic games. I should do that right now.
Yeah.
I missed Kill Knight. I'm so mad at myself.
You missed what?
Kill Knight that was free the other day.
Kill Knight. Was that one of the like?
I'm actually very upset now.
Yeah.
Holiday ones.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh shit, Kill Knight. I better remember to do this, and then I forgot.
Shame.
The deals and stuff thread not doing its job.
Indeed.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Hell Let Loose is free now. Yeah, I missed Kill Knight as well. Shame.
A game
No Knight was killed today.
But I did not miss Gravity Circuit, and neither should you.
Gravity Circuit.
It's good shit. It's been a long time since I've played like one of these that's like legitimately I think so far, I'm only like 2 stages in. I don't have any critiques or gripes, which is unusual. I think the
No Notes game is good.
What was the last one? God, there was one that I played. Shit. It was really fucking hard. Side scroller. You were like a cyber ninja.
Plavex.
The Messenger?
No, it wasn't The Messenger. Hold on. I bet you somebody vamp, because I bet you my list has it on there. Like games I played either last year or the year before. Not Slave Zero X.
I'll jump ahead while you search through your stuff and comment. I don't have a lot to talk about on this one, but I have resumed playing Dragon's Dogma 2. I started that a little while back, played a few hours just to get a feel for it. I've played a few more hours, still getting a feel for it, and I don't know. I don't know if it's for me. Like, this feels like a game I should like, and like I still respect it and everything, but so far it's not grabbing me, and I'm hoping that changes, but I don't know. Something about it just I respect a lot of the systems. I like the idea of, the pawn system and sending out your little dude to help other people and calling in theirs and doing all that little exchange stuff. I like that it's very deliberate, that it's you have to actually, weigh your items and choices and builds and everything decently well. I think he's found it.
Yes, I found it. Vengeful Guardian Moonrider was the last one of these that I played, other than Slave Zero X, which is also a good one. Anyways,
there you have it.
Back to you.
But yeah, I like the choices in Dragon's Dogma 2. I just don't know if it's clicking for me right, and maybe I just need to experiment more with I picked a warrior character. I probably need to swap to mage and fuck around with that because everyone talks up the magic system in that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that'll help, but I don't know. So far, not really grabbing me as much as I would like, and I want to at least put a few more hours into it before I give up entirely or anything. But yeah, so watch this space. That is just something I'm gradually working on.
Yeah. I really wanted to love Dragon's Dogma 2, but there was just something about it. It's one of those situations where it's like it ends up being like less than the sum of its parts. Like if you look at like all the ingredients that go into it, I should dig it, but for whatever reason, there's something about it that just doesn't.
It might just be the world or story is just not quite gripping me, and that might have something to do with it. I don't know. I just need that extra hook, I guess. I'm just not finding it yet, so we'll see.
Yeah, I hope you do, but
hopefully.
All right, what else do we have?
Will, would you like to start with Power Rangers?
I think you should start, Lucas, and I'll pick up where you leave off.
Okay.
This is Rita's Rewind?
Yes.
Yeah, Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. So this came out a little while ago.
This came out in December.
This came out a little while ago, as I said. Before the break.
It came out last year, Lucas.
Man. Yeah. Anyway, so it's a beat 'em up. It's an original game from Digital Eclipse, which does not often do original games. It's very similar visually to Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, but it's very different in sort of like its cadence, the kind of clip it moves at, and a lot of its mechanics and stuff. I could have sworn it had the same font too, but I looked at them next to each other and I ended up being wrong. It's very close though.
Legally distinct.
Yeah. So the way Will put it in his coverage of it, I think was very apt, is that it's a game that feels like an homage to something that didn't actually exist. But if it were to exist, that's exactly kind of what the situation would be. And I think in that way it borrows heavily from like Turtles in Time and Shredder's Revenge. It speaks a lot of the same language. It uses like a lot of orchestral hits in its music, sampled like old Konami games. So it's very much got that vibe. It's almost like there was a Power Rangers game in the arcades in the 90s, and this is like a big tribute to it. Except there never was. There was just some like Super Nintendo beat 'em ups that were okay. I was really excited about this game, but when I went and I actually played it, I wasn't having a good time like I expected to. And a lot of that chalked up to like just the basic moving and punching things feeling kind of off in a really specific way. And by that I mean like compared to I think most other beat 'em ups like this. Not to say that they're all the same, but they're all very similar in like the kind of physicality of them, like the rules they all kind of play by when it comes to like hit stun and being able to get out of the way of things, and kind of like how how you can expect to be like interrupted, or when you feel safe to just mash on the buttons and stuff like that. They're all very similar. And when I was kind of playing the game like that, it was not working out for me really well. Part of that ended up being I accidentally picked hard mode because the Yellow Ranger doesn't have a weapon. Or she does, she's got knives, but like they deliberately made like connecting attacks with her more difficult. Just to be like, here's we'll have a challenging character. There's like animations that she doesn't have that the other Rangers has, and I emailed them like, I can't tell, is something wrong or is this on purpose? And they're like, no, it's deliberate. Blah blah blah. So there was that, and then I tried it as the other Rangers because you can't swap Rangers, or you couldn't swap Rangers in the middle of a run, which was weird. You have to like quit out.
In Shredder's Revenge, who did you play? Did you play Raphael?
I played the first time with Michelangelo.
Okay.
And then Thomas at Tinsley showed me that Raphael has a suplex. So the second time I played it, plays Raphael.
Gotcha.
I just
Raphael has Volcanic Viper.
He does, which is still one of my favorite like tweets.
Hell yeah.
Like, because it's just like, it's fucking beautiful. I was curious because Raphael's thing is like he's got stubby range, but like every time he does an attack, he like kind of moves forward. Is the Yellow Ranger like that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And like it seemed like the main combo string. It's a game that's simpler than you may have expected. It's like everyone has their main like hit, and then there's like an upwards attack, and then like a dive kick, super. It's not quite as interested in like playing with combos like Shredder's Revenge kind of is. But it's a good comparison because like Shredder's Revenge has that cadence that I would expect from a beat 'em up, where it's like, okay, I can play this and I can intuit how it works because I've played a million of these, and so I know how things are gonna kind of go. Whereas in this one, I just kept getting hit and yanked out of things, and and like getting stuffed. It's like, what is going on? This just doesn't feel right, and it never quite felt right to me, even when I chose other Rangers. But I did kind of like start understanding, the rules it was trying to get me to switch to, and so I wasn't like eating game overs all the time. Like I adjusted to it and got through it and everything. And so it was like, I understand what you're doing here. You're like, their attack animations are more elaborate, so you slow things down. There's stuff going on with like dodging, and they're trying to do something different. It was just really hard to adjust to because of all that context I was bringing into it. And then there's these like really gimmicky, oh my god, Zord levels, where it's almost like Space Harrier. And those are kind of cute. They're really fast paced. They're really loud visually. People were struggling with them in certain parts. And there's like some weird hit detection stuff going on. Like you have to shoot a lot, and sometimes you have to be more precise than you probably should the way the game handles. So that was kind of annoying. And then you get in the Megazord, and it's kind of like this weird punch out kind of mystical ninja starring Goemon in the N64 kind of thing. It's interesting, but kind of annoying by the third or fourth time you're asked to do it. But I walked away. I kind of gave it a 7 out of 10. I was like, I like the energy this has. It's very aggressive, and it's like kind of nostalgia for the genre plus Power Rangers in a way that, again, it does the like tribute to a non-existing game thing really well. So like feeding off that energy was a lot of fun. But I struggled a lot with the gameplay. But I think Will liked it more than me, and I have a postscript, so I want to throw it to Will real quick.
So I agree with a lot of what Lucas has said. I think the superscalar elements of the game are not always great. Which, like, you blow up, you pilot the Megazord, you go through these I put them in tiers, right? Like there's good super scalar parts and bad ones.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, for sure.
the motorcycle ones are fun. Those are great. Really like those. The ones where you're in the dinosaurs is kind of a mixed bag. It depends on the level. There's a couple that are really great, and there's the one with the fucking floating eyeball, Lucas. I swear to God, I spent an hour on that level.
Trying to remember, I don't think the eyeball guy gave me any trouble, but is that the one where you fight the stupid tentacle robot thing and you
Yes.
can't tell? Yeah, hit detection. Really, like I was just like I can't tell where I'm supposed to be standing to avoid
right.
this
Yeah,
thing right now.
exactly.
Yeah,
Right. Like, do I dodge left? Do I dodge right? That one. The thing that made it difficult for me was it would put you in these situations where it was like, if you don't dodge this attack, we just kill you.
yeah,
Or if you don't jump this thing properly, we just kill you. And it's like, I have 2 lives.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
just kill me, and I'm struggling against like the tentacle robot, which I was,
they will send you right back to the beginning of the level if I remember right.
yeah. Like, okay. And then the like the one-on-one fights with the big things in the Megazord I did not like. With where you could, punch them.
Mhm.
Like, which is funny because I feel like they changed it from the preview build I played.
Hmm.
And they made certain things more readable, but they also made like other changes. I think those segments are interesting, but there's also really interesting like unique segments where they do like the super scalar and it's like you're on a roller coaster.
The
That's
roller
awesome.
coaster ride is a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that part is great, right? And then that whole section, the theme park section is amazing. That boss is fun. That whole level is great. The roller coaster is great. It's one of those things where like the game is mixed. I was more, I think, enjoyable of it. I enjoyed it more than you did because partially I think I didn't start with the Yellow Ranger, um, which I think may have colored
Big deal.
you.
Huge deal. Yeah.
Yeah, colored you a little bit on that. But for me, it was more along the lines of like it does feel a little stiff. I got used to the way that it felt, and it was like, okay,
Yeah.
this wants me to be a little bit more precise, right? Like where Turtles is a lot more like kind of freewheeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually liked the precision because it was like, okay, the boss is going to do this, I'm going to jump, right? And it made me feel like kind of a fighting game where I was more reactive and I could play reactively. But I think your criticism is good. But that said, like, I think what makes it really cool and really fun is like, A, it's gorgeous. Like, it's
Yeah.
stunningly beautiful. B, it has great soundtrack. There's plenty of fun Easter eggs. I really love the arcade games that you could unlock. I spent way too much time on those. I think it gets the IP as someone who isn't like a super duper Power Rangers fan, but like I was like, oh, let me go check out some more Power Rangers stuff after
Yeah.
this. And I like coming back to it, I'm like, I think it gets it, right? Like it does a good job of understanding what Power Rangers is.
It captures
And
all the magic without any of the stuff that's not
goofy,
entertaining.
too
Yeah.
much. Yeah, so I think it does a lot of really good stuff. I think there are a couple levels that are really rough.
Yeah.
And in a 15 level game, like that stands out because like the levels are pretty short, So if you have 2 levels that are like, man, this is I'm not having fun, that doesn't feel good. But I think I came out of it higher. How much did you play in co-op?
I played by myself the whole time.
Okay, I will tell you that like everything's better in co-op, but I genuinely think like from a design perspective, like it's better in co-op, right? Not just because I was playing with my wife, we had fun, but because like the way the game is designed, it really kind of expects you to be playing with somebody else, where you can do more things because you're in co-op. So certain things like, those big fuckers when they grab you and you're like,
And
I just eat this big
yeah.
combo.
It's like frame perfect. It's like as soon as you stop pressing a button, they're just like, meh.
Yeah. If you're playing with a friend, those big guys are not that big of a problem because your friend can come over and punch them,
right?
And then they'll let you go. And there's a lot of little things like that where like they can pick somebody up and throw them and bounce them off the wall, and then you can combo them. And it feels like a game that's, I wrote about, I think in the review, like this is a game that's like in the vein of, Turtles in Time or X-Men, right? Like the original X-Men arcade, all the way back in the day. That's big ass 6-player cabinet, right? And I think
double CRT.
Yeah, those games were also designed kind of on the assumption that like you're gonna have a friend, Like there's going to be somebody who's going to walk up to that cabinet and play with you, right? Or
Mhm.
there's going to be somebody that you're going to pass a controller to. And I think that the game legitimately is better with other people. So, if you ever want to run through it again, let me know. But I
They
do
did
think,
add online to it after we reviewed it.
yeah. But I think it's like I'm grateful that it exists, and I'm grateful that the superscalar levels exist too, as like inconsistent as they are, because I think that the problem with any beat 'em up is like, what's the gimmick, right? Because a beat 'em up has to be functionally sound, right? Like the movement has to feel good, the combos have to feel good, like it has to feel fair, even if it isn't often fair, especially the old ones.
Yeah.
But it also has to be like, okay, 2 to 3 hours, great runtime, love that. But I played oh my god, it's this old Capcom beat 'em up this year for the first time. Battle Circuit, I think, is what it's called. Anybody here ever played Battle
I'm
Circuit?
gonna say The Punisher.
That's the one.
No,
Because
no, no,
Lucas
no,
and
no,
I
no.
did that.
Are there like tanks in that, or am I thinking of something else?
I think you're thinking of something else. So this
Okay.
is in the Capcom beat 'em up collection. So a little bit of background, I guess, for our listeners.
I
My
should-
wife and I like beat 'em ups are kind of like our relaxing genre. And I would consider myself like an expert in the genre because I've played so many of them. And because like if the collection comes out, I'm like, I'm gonna go buy this. Like I'm gonna go do history research. Like I'm gonna go find like the original cartridge. I love beat 'em ups, and so
Same.
I felt like, yeah, it's Battle Circuit. And I picked up the Capcom beat 'em up collection from a few years ago, and I realized there were a couple of them that I hadn't played, and so I picked up Battle Circuit. And Battle Circuit is, if you haven't played Battle Circuit, Lucas, I think you really should play it. It is
It's
incredible.
crazy. I have that collection, and this doesn't look familiar, so I must have just completely overlooked it.
I will also, if you need a co-op partner, I love this one. And it's short, right? So you're playing as a group of bounty hunters, and you're like in the far future, and you're hunting, these people. And one of the bounty hunters is like a giant, like Venus flytrap, and one of them's like Captain Commando looking dude, and like it's great, right? And they all have different abilities, and it's very fun. But the battle circuit thing was like the gimmick, right? The thing that makes the beat 'em up work is because every beat 'em up has a gimmick, right? And it's the thing that makes it work whether you know it or not. For Turtles in Time, it's presentation and the game feel, and that you can throw enemies at the screen, and that every level is different, right? That's what makes Turtles in Time work. For more modern stuff like Shredder's Revenge, it's all of that, plus every turtle has a different ability. Every turtle plays slightly differently, right? And so the gimmick is what makes it work. For Streets of Rage, the new one, Streets of Rage 4, it's that you have an enormous amount of ability to express yourself based on the character that you play, right? And so the gimmick is what defines a beat 'em up, because there's plenty of beat 'em ups that are functionally good. Like I reviewed the Karate Kid beat 'em up last year. Functionally good. Never gets to the point of what is the gimmick, what is the fun thing, right?
No sauce.
And it also,
no sauce.
No sauce, right? And the weird thing is like it functionally like doesn't work as a Karate Kid thing, because the Karate Kid is mostly like you should not fight unless you absolutely have to. So it feels weird to play in that universe where you're just kicking the shit out of people.
Yeah.
Like those two things are diametrically opposed. So the thing that I think makes Power Rangers work is the superscalar levels, right? And the fact that almost all of them are fun, except for a couple, or a couple variations, like that's good. That is a new gimmick of like, how do we do this, right? Because like I think the one where you're fighting the Green Ranger and his big ass like Mechagodzilla,
The Dragon Zord.
Yeah, Dragon Zord is fun, right?
Yeah.
That segment is fun. The segment on the roller coaster is fun. The bike segments are fun. A lot of the superscalar levels work, and a couple of them don't. And they don't work to an extent that like it doesn't feel good, like actively kind of disrupts your enjoyment of the game. But I think I was, if you're willing to kind of go through the game is a little more stiff than maybe you remember. beat 'em ups of that era being, right? Because like the Konami games are not stiff at all. And you're willing to like kind of roll with that and be like, okay, I have to be a little bit more precise. Like the enjoyment comes from, look at this cool ass gimmick that they made. And it doesn't always work. But to go back to Battle Circuit, the reason I brought it up, Battle Circuit's gimmick is you can upgrade your characters between levels. You get more stuff, and it makes the characters play differently. And on top of that, the other gimmick is all the characters play differently because one of them is a Venus flytrap. Big Venus flytrap, right?
Oh, yeah.
And like, there's a dude who's like a regular like bounty hunter, like, you know, he'd be in like some generic thing, but he's actually really cool, right? And so when you die, it's like, oh, I want to go play the other characters, right, and see what they can do. Or when you get to the end of the level of, what if I buy this, right? And that's what makes beat 'em ups fun, is what is the gimmick? And I think Power Rangers, which is not a perfect beat 'em up, but I would love to see Digital Eclipse take another shot at this, because I think they understand the gimmick is the game. And if you can build great levels, like with a good core combat system, the gimmick is what makes it sing, right? And that's what makes Turtles of Time good. It's what makes Shredder's Revenge good. It's what makes Streets of Rage good. It's what makes the original X-Men arcade game good. So it makes all these classics good. And the same thing for like a lot of the games in the Capcom Beat 'em collection, whether that is Battle Circuit or Knights of the Round or the D&D beat 'em ups that Capcom made. Any of those, right? What makes it good is what the gimmick is. And I think that they hit it on a really unique and really cool gimmick. So if you like you know, Power Rangers and you like beat 'em ups, I really would recommend it, but I would tell you, don't play this by yourself. Like, it's really not designed to be played alone. I think Lucas's experience speaks to that, because a lot of this stuff kind of relies on like, I can do this with a partner, and by myself I can't do anything. What is your postscript, Lucas?
So, Digital Eclipse has since updated the game. And it's like a significant update, and it addresses pretty much everything we just talked about that was negative. Like they straight up, one of the things on one of the bullet list is fixed pit logic in Zord sequences. So like they sat there and they like read reviews and looked at, you know, a lot of the Steam reviews kind of say similar things about it being sluggish and having some issues, and they were just like, okay, let's take this feedback and let's roll with it and change some things and tweak some things. Another thing to do. Oh, also apparently Yellow Ranger had a glitch where when she had full lightning power, her punches wouldn't fully connect. So I was dealing with that too, apparently. But they've tweaked some properties with like throws. They've let's see. They changed, slightly changed how the roll works a little bit. Made bigger changes in easy mode. And then they also, let's see, here's the exact language they use. They just made all Rangers now move faster, walk and dash speeds. And between like tweaking the speed, and it's not a huge speed difference. I went and played it today to check it out finally. And it just feels so much better now, in kind of the ways I was talking about, because I think some of the things where you can get like interrupted or slapped out of things that maybe intuitively you shouldn't. It's hard to tell if that was fully intentional or not, because of how slightly tweaking the movement speed pretty much makes it a non-issue for me. And it still has that kind of meatiness to it. It's not just all of a sudden a different game. Like there's still there's time in your combos to like watch the animation, you know, while like the Rangers will pull their weapons out like mid combo, which is really cool. And so it's still like, it feels like the same game. There were still things like I had to contend with, like especially like the dodge roll doesn't have a cooldown now, but they really yanked a bunch of iframes out of it in exchange. So there are some situations even where you have to be more careful than before. And And then I played the one of the Zord levels, and I was just like, oh, this is so much more like playable now, in the sense that like I don't have to perfectly notice the pit when it's coming up and jump the right way. Like I felt like I just was in a little more control there. I'm not gonna go down everything, but I feel like if this was the game I played the first time, I would have been like all over this thing, because it's like Will said, the gimmick, and for me it's also like the energy, which is a very vague thing to say, but this game really brings it. It's like the game is so excited to be there, hanging out with you, and just like do some fun shit with Power Rangers, and it wants you to get friends, because it's like it's up to 6 players. Like you get the Green Ranger, and if your platform supports 6 people, like, you can have 6 people playing, which is a lot for even for a beat 'em up. Usually you're capped off at 4 unless you're like X-Men, and that game is very mechanically simple as kind of a trade-off. Yeah, it's just like, holy shit, this is like everything that had me, scratching my head a little bit, is just like it's gone now, and it doesn't feel like a compromise. It doesn't feel like, oh well, we tried, so I guess we'll just make it, like Ninja Turtles. It's still physically hitting the button, seeing the thing. It still feels like the game I played before. It's just like the logic is tweaked just so.
It's commendable of them to actually go and do all that, though, based on the live feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, like having spoken with some of the developers over at Digital Eclipse while they were making this game pre-release and getting to play an earlier build, like they deeply care, right? And that comes across. And that's not to say that like most developers deeply care. I think most people care about the stuff that they're working on, right? Like that's, we're putting years of our lives into whatever our projects are, whether it's this podcast or a game, whatever, right? Whatever our project is, we care. But they talked about wanting to get it right, and I think by and large, like they did from the jump, and then being able to take that feedback and be like, oh, actually, we totally get it. Let's play around with the design, right? Because they had never developed a game like this from the ground up, realistically, right? Like this was their first time. Like they've done a lot of remasters and ports, and great. There's a difference between being like, yeah, I understand why this game works, Turtles in Time, and functionally being able to take those lessons and saying, okay, I can take that and I can turn that into a new game that works because, right? And I think, again, I came out of it a little higher than Lucas did. I think mostly because of the co-op, but to be able to take that lesson and be like, okay, what can we do? How can we fix it? Right, and then be very forthright with the community, which they were, about like, we hear you, we want to patch this, and then they did, being very forthright with, hey, the co-op's not coming initially, this is our plan, right? I think that really speaks to how much time and effort and thought they've put into it, and
definitely.
Yeah, I thought it was good without that, and I have not played it since the review period, so I'm very eager to actually go back and see how it feels, because I think that and even in the sections I didn't really appreciate, I think they were 1 or 2 things away from like, this feels really good, right? You just need to make these couple of tiny changes. It's like, not to overuse the fighting game reference, but like it's like playing a fighting game character, and move feels bad because it has like 3 too many recovery frames, right? And then they take that away, and it's like clicks immediately, like, oh, this move is good now, right? So, like even little things make a difference, especially in a genre like this. And I think Lucas has brought up really good points, and I'm glad to see that they've changed that stuff.
Yeah, speaking of trying co-op, definitely want to take you up on that, especially because I really want to see the part I think I struggled the most was that it's the boss fight where you fight the 2 bird monsters at the same time.
Yeah, we kind of breezed through that. I'm not gonna lie to you, and I think it was because like
probably the co-op.
Yeah, it was the co-op, right? And it feels designed for that because 2 of them,
Yeah, because these guys just like track you the perfect way. And again, they have like the throwy guys. It's just like you can see. It almost feels like you're getting input read by a SNK boss, where he's just like, he does the long range thing at exactly the perfect time. This second you're vulnerable from doing something else, and it's just like, ah. But yeah, I definitely, it makes sense because like it's so co-op, right? It's not just here's 4 people. It's like here's 5 and then 6. It's like they definitely want that. So this is really sad that co-op didn't work at the time. Online, excuse me, didn't work at the time.
Yeah, and I think
right there.
It's right there now. And I'm gonna bang this drum again. If there's anybody who is listening to this and you're like, man, I don't know where to start with beat 'em ups. Like, let me give you, and Lucas, you can jump in on this if I miss anything, but let me give you the required reading, right, of beat 'em ups, so you can understand where you're like, I want to understand the genre. Turtles in Time, number 1. The Capcom beat 'em up collection. If you just want to understand Capcom's output from that period, it's got Final Fight in there. It's got Battle Circuit in there, which is low key now one of my favorites just from playing it with my wife. There's a ton of other great stuff in there. The D&D beat 'em ups that Capcom did, also excellent, which are still easy to get. The original X-Men, if you can find it, it's not been re-released on modern systems. You might have to go sail the high seas for that one. But until Konami releases it, until Disney gets their head out of their ass, you got to play it. Shredder's Revenge, as far as the new stuff goes, Streets of Rage in general, River City Girls also. And from there, I think you've got to think about just the other TMNT beat 'em ups, and frankly, the more modern stuff like Streets of Rage, like Reader's Rewind. And I think that will get you enough of a broad scope of what the genre is that you can then play around with it. Lucas, did I miss anything, do you think?
I don't think you missed anything. I'm partial to some of the really wacky stuff you find when you download like all MAME ROMs. The ones that come to mind for me are like Ninja Baseball Batman, which is just one of the most absurd beat 'em ups you'll ever see in your life. And then the Battletoads arcade game, which I think does the whole cadence really differently that I've been talking about, but it still works really well. It just has a very different gameplay flow. Is also very stupid because it's Battletoads.
Because it's Battletoads.
Battletoads, yeah. And I think the other thing is like, if you play action games, especially like understanding beat 'em ups will help you understand action games and fighters and action adventure games, right? Like all these genres kind of overlap and they borrow from each other a lot. Devil May Cry is essentially just a 3D beat 'em up, right? So is Ninja Gaiden.
Dynasty Warriors are
Dynasty Warriors, right? Like if you think of Dynasty Warriors as a beat 'em up, I promise you, your view of that series will change if your view is negative.
Instantly go up.
It instantly goes up because as a beat 'em up, it's very good. So yeah, I guess I don't want to belay this, but my challenge to any listener who comes into this and maybe isn't familiar with the genre is go play some beat 'em ups. We're kind of in a golden age for revitalizing that genre from stuff like Shredder's Revenge and just being able to access Turtles in Time immediately, being able to access the old Capcom games immediately, right? And then the new stuff, Shredder's Revenge, Streets of Rage 4. Like the fact that this stuff is out there and available and accessible means that you can figure out what kind of beat 'em up you like. And once you figure out what that is for you, you can figure out why you like the genre. And I think that's the most important part of any piece of criticism, even if you're just doing it for yourself. Is not, is it good, is it bad, is what do I like and why? Let me talk about it, right? And so my challenge to our listeners, and if anybody decides to leave us comments or anything like this, on the next episode, tell us a beat 'em up you played.
And to add to that challenge, I really strongly want to emphasize that like you should play those games as if you have quarters, kind of to at stake, I guess. Something I notice a lot over the years playing beat 'em ups with other people is they'll just mash button, and it's like, oh, I did, but free plays on, so whatever. I just mash, and they never really like learn that the language I've kind of been talking about. I think is really interesting, especially like how you play defensively in those games. Really stands out.
And,
so if you care just a little bit, like don't sweat it if you die, but try not to, like actively try not to die instead of just being like, whatever, I'll just mash attack.
Good life advice in general, really.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, think about where you are on the screen. Think about, the levels that the other characters are on. Can I hit them? Can they hit me? Should I throw them at this point to get some added invincibility, right? Should I, if I'm playing a beat 'em up that has like an additional superpower that I can activate that'll clear the screen, when should I use that? When should I save it? What power-up should I use? When? Why? All these things are, people think beat 'em ups are a really simple genre, and I want to emphasize as hard as I possibly can without yelling that is not true.
Yeah.
They're very complex. The tools you are given in most cases are very simple, but the act of playing the game requires, playing it well. To Lucas's point, think about it if like you had quarters, right? How do you maximize your quarters? And once you start thinking about it like that, that's where the fun comes in.
Yeah.
Not because the challenge is there to make it fun, but because you're thinking about, how do I approach this in a way that allows me to do the things that I want? Right? Whether that's doing combos in Streets of Rage or doing throws at the right time or any of that stuff is the fun part of the beat 'em up, is understanding all the little minute details of the system. And it's like it's kind of weird comparison, I guess, but competitive Pokemon, right? Like people think Pokemon is a very simple game. And if you just play it single player, it can be. But if you really dig into it, there's a lot of complexity
there. Yeah.
And you can find it, and it's amazing what you can do with a very simple group of systems that allows you to make interesting decisions, right? So if you take that away, again, challenge, go play a beat 'em up, tell us what you played, tell us what you liked about it, but please go examine that genre and think about it like you have quarters, and think about it in the same way that you would appreciate any other kind of game, or how do I avoid dying, how do I get the best out of what I want? And I promise you, if you do that, and if you start thinking about action adventure games and action games as just kind of 3D beat 'em ups or beat 'em ups in larger spaces with more tools, you will appreciate those games more and you'll have more fun.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Good stuff.
Co-signed.
Well, that seems like a pretty good place to wrap up.
We can save Metaphor for next time. I'll probably have more to play, or have played more by then, so can weigh in on it when you give us the finale.
Anyways, good show, guys. It's nice to have you all back.
It's good to be back, man.
You smell that?
2025.
It's a new year, baby. We can fit so many platformers in this bitch. Anyways, thank you all for joining us. Slash the hood of it. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of The Platformers. If you like the show, please leave a review or tell somebody about it. We love talking to all of you, so come join us. I'm on Blue Sky and Backlogged at Brian Barnett, and Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube at Ribnax, Ribnax. We stream episodes live on Twitch, and I store the VODs on YouTube. And as far as what I've got going on, you will see some more stuff about Indiana Jones and the Great Circle and Metal Slug Tactics coming out from me soon. And other than that, stay tuned to my socials where you will see some cool new stuff soon. Kris, where can everybody find you?
Hey, I'm Kris Connolly. You can find me around the internet as Delfeir, Delfeir. My website is versusthebacklog.com. That's vsthebacklog.com, one word. Nothing new there at the moment, but there should be something real soon that's going up, and other projects in the works coming up soon, hopefully. That's me. Lucas?
Hey, Lucas White. You can find me on Blue Sky at Hokuto Lucas. Mostly write for Shack News. That's where my Ys Memoir review is. That's where another review coming up will be. I also just started at the Walmart website, restart.run, where I am writing news every day, which was an interesting sort of collision with what video games are now that I'd kind of been ignoring until it was like Squid Game X Call of Duty. Okay, I have to write about this now because I'm back in the news mines. I got something coming to Kotaku soon, and that's about it. Other than the thing everyone else is hinting at, so watch it. Yes.
You can find me on Twitter at ByWillBurger. I'm still using it reluctantly, and you can find me on Blue Sky, which is where I do most of my posting these days at Edgar Allan Bro. Please, talk to me about beat 'em ups. I'm always looking for new stuff. If you have a niche one that you don't think that enough people have played, please recommend it. I'm happy to play it and talk about it on the show, and I'd love to hear what you guys have been playing too. If you are looking for more of my writing, it's the new year, and I've already got some things lined up. I have a very, very exciting thing coming at the end of the month, which may lead into February. Not sure yet, but keep an eye out for that. I've also got a review lined up today, and I'm going to be writing about the Warcraft anniversary that I just talked about in the next few days. So I'll keep you guys updated. Just follow my socials; you'll see it. But please talk to me about what you're playing, and especially if you're playing action games or beat 'em ups, I'd really love to hear what you guys are up to and what you think. So that's me.
Good stuff. All right, from everybody here at the Platformers, we hope you have a wonderful week and stay safe out there. Because until next time, we are out.
Peace.
Goodbye.